Hi, this is Mike Meechan, principal at NeoCity Academy. Thanks for joining us for our Parent University series online for standards-based grading. Today we're going to talk about a lot of the standards-based grading practices that we use at NeoCity Academy and take you through that process. One of the things that we hear often is about college and grading process at the next level, and that we as a collective in education need to prepare students for that next level. Um, when in reality, when we take a look at what we're preparing students for from a grading aspect for college and post-secondary, college is the wild west of grading. There is no system that we're preparing kids for grade-wise at the next level. Uh, College professors are using a wide variety of grading practices and methodologies to assess students. So for us, really, it's about preparing them with the critical thinking skill set that is necessary to be able to figure out whatever grading practice is in place. So, we want to kind of get some of these things, these myths out of the way, that we're preparing students for this collegiate system of grading, because that system doesn't quite exist. The other thing that's really important to know and understand is that, particularly in Osceola County, teachers have autonomy with regard to the grading practices that they put in place in their classrooms. We are fortunate at NeoCity to culturally believe, um, as a collective, in a grading philosophy that we're going to outline for you in this PowerPoint presentation. But that is not the norm necessarily, and a lot of times grades can be very difficult to change or make sure that effective practices are in place, and that's because of teacher freedom and academic freedom and autonomy with regard to those grading practices. And as I said, we're fortunate that our staff here at NeoCity believes philosophically in the same foundational pieces that make up our grading system. So a question that we often start with both our faculty and students and our parents is, what is it? What is a grade? What makes up a student's grade component? It's a really important question that, in order for us to understand why it is we do the things that we do here at NeoCity, it's an important question for us to reflect a little bit on. So, if you'll take a moment, just think about, as you've looked at student work previously, prior to NeoCity Academy, when you saw a grade, whether it was an 87, a 72, or a 98, what did that grade actually tell you? We can look at it through the lens of a progress report, right? When we ask this question, what is a grade, and really examine what it is we're talking about. So, for example, if you were to look at this progress report for Michael Meechan, and you got this progress report sent home for your student, you can see the student's doing okay. They've got C's distributed across their Spanish, their geometry, their chem, and an A in engineering tech one. The question that I would ask, particularly to parents, is, when you look at these grades on this progress report, what does it tell you? What does that 79 in geometry actually mean to you? What conversations can you have with your student at home, based on the minimal data that you're getting? I would argue that very little. You're not going to be able to glean a lot from those grades that are printed here on a progress report, and be able to truly help your student, move academically forward. So this process, right, where we learn about this grading system, it happens at a really early age, and you can see this. Example is my daughter's, who's in third grade. This is her work, and you could see she scored a 70% and earned a C. Our argument is that, on the 100-point scale, there's issues with that. This student in particular answered more than half of the questions correct, but yet on our A to F scale, she's in the middle. And we would argue that a student that has answered 7 out of 10 questions correctly, they're not really in the middle. So we've had to design a scale that reflects that. It's even more evident, when a student receives a 6 out of 10, still has answered more than half of the questions correct, but they're awarded a D work on the letter grade scale. So, for us, it's not really an accurate representation of where the student is at. They've answered a majority of the correct questions correctly, but on our traditional scale, they would be awarded a grade that is almost considered a failure. So at NeoCity, we have taken an approach where we've redesigned the traditional scale, which you can see here above, where we have a D student that, like Kennedy, answered still 6 out of 10 questions correct. On the traditional letter scale, they would receive a D. On the NeoCity scale, however, we are looking at that body of work. We are assigning it to one of our proficiency levels, so either above proficient, proficient, nearing, below, or not submitted. But that same D work where the student has answered a majority of the questions, 6 out of the 10 questions correctly, they're not going to be scored quite proficient, but they're going to be in that nearing proficiency range. So they're probably going to be in that B or C range, which really is where the student should be. But if we use the traditional approach, we would score this assignment a 60%. And on our traditional scale, that's D work. And that's why, at NeoCity, we've really felt the need to redesign our scale. And this proficiency scale is what we use school-wide. When we get into Canvas, there's a lot of different pieces that parents are able to use. First of all, the first thing you should know as a parent is that you have access to every single thing that your student has done, submitted, feedback from teachers, comments that are provided, whether assignments are late or missing. You have access to all of that information. You can find that information on our website under the Parents section, and then clicking the link for Canvas info for parents. That will show you how to establish your parent account. And once you do that and you're in a course with your student, you're able to click on grades on the left-hand menu. The first tab that's going to come up is going to be the assignments tab. And you can see that here. So with the assignments tab, you're going to go ahead and see a list of all of the things that your student has done in this course. It shows you your due date, if there's a status issue. So for example, if that assignment is late or missing, you'll see that indicated there. You'll also see some icons on the far right-hand side. So let's look at some of those. So if you see the little question boxes, that means that there's a comment in that assignment. And if you click it, it will drop down the comments that are attached to that particular assignment. You can also see some other additional information by using the other icons. If there's the clipboard, that means that there's actual scores available for that particular assignment and that the teacher has awarded a proficiency rating to that particular assignment. You'll see for this assignment, 2.4, the article reflection, that there's actually 2 outcomes or standards attached to this particular work. When you look at student grades in our grade book and what will be reported on the report card, you actually will not see the assignment. Instead, you'll see the actual outcome. So you'll see 2B foundations and 3A foundations. Those grades are going to be the above proficient and proficient score. So this student in particular on these 2 outcomes has done a really good job demonstrating proficiency. So that's what you're going to be looking for as you go through student grades. And on our grading scale, proficient is where we want students to be. That is the level of expectation. They can get to above proficient, but both above proficient and proficient are A work. Proficient is going to go in the gradebook as a 93%. Above proficient goes in as 100, but both are scored as an A. In addition, when you click the Learning Mastery tab, which you'll also see at the top here, this will take you to the Learning Mastery view. This is where you'll see all of the outcomes. You can see them all listed here. You're looking for students to master each of these outcomes. So for example, for this course, AP English Lang, the teacher has indicated in their Canvas course that they're going to assess students on 5 outcomes during the quarter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those outcomes are what are going to be reported in the gradebook. And this student on the right-hand side, you can see where they've mastered this outcome. What that means is that they've scored proficient, the expected level, or higher on those outcomes. So this student in particular will have straight A's in this particular course. So for each of these outcomes, you're going to see an A for each of them for this particular student in this particular course. And in addition to that, the parent can actually see everything that has been given with relation to that outcome. So for example, for 2B foundations, if you click on the arrow, you'll be able to expand the score details, and you can see the assignments, the danger of a single story, and the article reflection that assessed this standard. And you can also see the proficiency ratings for this particular student, proficient and above proficient. Their highest score is always going to prevail as well. So even though she scored a proficient on this assignment, the above proficient is what's going to be scored, because we always will take the highest score as well. And that has led to the mastery over here on the right-hand side. It takes a little bit of time to get used to it, and that's mainly because we've been conditioned for the previous schooling that we've had to a very different system. But our system is definitely assessing kids more accurately on their learning. You can also go in and click any feedback that the teachers have provided. You can see that listed here. That will show you exactly what the students are seeing with regard to feedback as well for a particular assignment, which will be helpful as you have conversations with your students, particularly in areas where they may need additional improvement. The life cycle of a grade at NeoCity also looks a little bit different. You'll hear us use two words, formative and summative assessments. There are 2 different types of assessment that we give to students here. The formative is really about practice. So students may take multiple practice assessments before they ever get to a summative. So summatives are going to be a final grade that will be attached to the student work, whereas formative work is really about feedback, and it may not have a grade attached to it. That's different for students because students are used to doing work and always receiving a grade for it. But here at NeoCity, we want them to practice. We want them to practice before they have to actually sit and do something that is going to have a grade attached to it. So you will hear your students talk a lot about doing formative work. Now, turn-in rates for formative work are traditionally pretty low. However, they are equally as important. Even though a grade is not assigned for them, it is really important that students are doing that practice work, that formative work, getting feedback from their teachers so that they can perform well on their summative assessment. In addition, you can see our ratings here. So we mentioned previously that proficiency is where we want students to be. That's why we award a 93 for proficient work. So while students can get to above proficiency, we want them to make sure that the target remains that proficient level of work. And we will award them an A grade in the gradebook for demonstrating proficiency with their teachers. You can see over the past year, as we have implemented standards-based grading school-wide, that we have been very successful in terms of student performance on their letter grades at the end of each quarter. we were very, very happy with the amount of students that were being tremendously successful. We also learned that students that are showing D and sometimes F work, that there are, because we're assessing more accurately student learning, that is an indication to parents that there is a true issue with accomplishing the expectations academically for that class. So, at that point, we need to make sure that students are using their research period properly, receiving tutoring from our instructional staff, or sometimes what will lead to that is non-completion of work. And we want students to make sure that the work that they're doing is valued, receives feedback, but they have to submit it in order for us to assign a grade. If you have additional questions, you can reach out to us, any of us here at the school. More importantly, you can reach out to your student school counselor who can help you with questions to the grading system or how we implement that. And then also, don't ever hesitate to reach out to your student's teacher. They're the primary source of information, and they can be tremendously helpful to getting you the right information that you need to help your student be successful. We have a team of people here, so if you ever need additional help, don't ever hesitate to reach out. We appreciate you taking time to watch this video on standards-based grading. Thank you. Have a good day.